Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. I am doing a Q&A, like get to know me video. I feel like I've shared a lot about myself on Instagram and TikTok, and then YouTube, I want to give it the same love. So I asked on Instagram for any questions about me, about like what you want to know about my job or my recovery, literally any sort of question. And I have them all here, and I'm going to go through and answer a bunch of these. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So I got a lot of questions about my move to the city. For those who don't know, I am from Long Island, like 45 minutes away from Manhattan. And then I just moved into the city this past November. So it's been probably like, what, 5 months, I guess? It's almost April. So what made me move to the city? It's kind of a complicated explanation. I feel like an easy answer would be like, oh, I moved for work. But in reality, me and my roommate, who's one of my really good friends, we both work from home. So it wasn't like we needed to be, in office anywhere or move for work. Like, we both were able to work from anywhere. We said like for a while that we were going to move to the city for months and months and months, and then like never really took steps to do it. And I think part of that was because we didn't have this like external drive. It was kind of just like whenever we felt like it. But I was like very comfortable at home. I really enjoyed living with my mom and having my dog 24/7. I loved not having expenses. I was like very comfortable. I kind of had to push myself to move because, again, I was so comfortable and I didn't feel like the need to change all of that. But at the same time, I had lived home since I graduated college in 21. So I was like, it's been, a couple of years. I've been saving up. I have probably had all the experiences here that I'm gonna have in like my hometown, and I love my hometown, but it's probably time to experience something else. I feel like it was really just to like experience new things and kind of open some other doors that maybe wouldn't be an option even to open here if I had stayed. I'm home, by the way, now for the weekend, so that's why I just referenced here. The transition after my move was honestly really hard. I had some like family things going on at the time that made it hard or harder than it would have been. And I also am just very close with my family, so being away from them was and still is challenging for me. So I do come home frequently. Like, I have my car, so it's very easy for me to go back and forth. So I definitely love that I made that choice now. I'm so glad that I pushed myself to do that because it has opened doors for me. And, I've made new friends because of it and just like allowed myself to grow a bit more. I also got some questions about like affording to live in New York, and I feel like this ties in very well with what I just shared. So like I said, I lived home for the 2 years or so after graduation, and I worked a 9 to 5 as a paralegal for less than a year, but I think maybe like 10 months or something. But I had that consistent income that I was able to like, just save immediately because, again, I didn't have expenses living at home and I was very frugal with my spending. At the time, I didn't realize that I was, building up this cushion for me. But when I moved, I realized like I'm so glad I had that because New York is expensive, but it's worth it in my opinion. Like, no city is like it. Obviously, I love New York. And on top of that, I also, work. So I worked as a paralegal, like I said, that allowed me to kind of build that cushion, which was really nice. And then when I left that job, I got a job at a binge eating therapist's like practice. I started off as her assistant and then worked my way to like manager co-coach position after getting some certification. Obviously, that income helped sustain me while I lived in the city. Okay, so I'm gonna do 2 in 1 here. What is your full-time job and why did you switch from your previous job? So like I said, I was a manager and co-coach at Ryan Nicole's practice full-time for probably like a year and a half. Like, I started off as her assistant, made my way over to that position throughout that time period. And it was fully virtual, fully work from home. Really loved the work that I was doing with her, and the circumstances changed where my hours had to be bumped down to just a couple hours a week, which I'm still doing now, but obviously that's not just like a livable job. So I decided to take this as an opportunity to lean into content full time. That was like, I mean, it still is scary, but that transition was really hard. It was pretty quick though, honestly, a couple weeks where I was like really upset and felt lost and like, what am I doing? I should just go back to a full-time job because I loved the stability and safety of that. But now I'm feeling a lot better and like, I'm feeling calm, I'm excited. I feel good about doing content full time. So it was definitely like a blessing in disguise kind of thing that like my hours got bumped down so much. That also happened probably like a month ago now. So I'm a month into doing content full time. And anything exciting planned for your content journey? Obviously YouTube. I am so excited to like have a camera and start posting consistently on this channel because like I said, this is something that little Isabel was obsessed with doing. Like I remember filming on like my freaking like DSi and editing on iMovie and uploading on YouTube. And I was like in 5th grade at the time. And I feel like now I actually have an interesting life to share. Like I think it's interesting at least. Like I have things to share now as like more grown being, I mean, I was gonna say an adult, but sometimes I don't know. The messages I have more to share now that I didn't then, and I feel like I'm just so excited to like relearn YouTube. Yeah, just like expand in that way. Besides that, I also just signed with an agent for like all of my social media deals and partnerships. So I'm really excited about that and like what that will bring in the future. We only just signed last week or something, 1 or 2 weeks ago. So far so good. Like I feel really good about it, but like all the better stuff is ahead of me. So I'm definitely excited to see how that plays out. How tall are you? I'm 5'8", 5'9", depending, which is really funny because my license says that I'm 5'6", which is like the most absurd thing ever. It's also from when I was a junior in high school. So it's been a while, but the license says I'm 5'6". When I go to the doctor, sometimes it says I'm 5'8", but then sometimes when I measure myself, I'm 5'9". I've met people in person and they were like, oh, I thought you were so much shorter. So I guess I give off shorter vibes, but no, I'm definitely a tall girl. That actually a fun fact about me, I was like short and small. I was a flyer on the cheer team in high school for 3 years because I was like 5'1", 5'2", whatever. Maybe not that small, but I was short. And then I had a big growth spurt junior into senior year around there, I think, or junior year of high school. And I shot up to like closer to what I am. And then I grew a little bit more in college, but yeah, I'm definitely tall. So let's transition into a little recovery related question. Oh, do you have any mantras in recovery, or did you have any mantras in recovery? 100%. Talking to myself was a huge part of my healing. 100% loved mantras. My favorite one, probably actually the only one that really comes to mind that I consistently used that was really effective for me, was all discomfort is temporary. And that applies to like mental and physical discomfort. So for example, like if I had eaten something that was like a fear food and I was mentally like freaking out and spiraling, reminding myself that this discomfort, this mental discomfort is gonna pass. I'll have these thoughts and feelings and time will go on as it always does, and you know, it will pass. Same thing physically, like if I'm, let's say, feeling super bloated, and I'm talking about like when I was deep in it where I was really upset by being bloated, or even just feeling full sometimes, like that physical discomfort would also pass, reminding myself like this is a temporary feeling, it's not gonna last forever, nothing lasts forever. So just that reminder. And I definitely still use that to this day. I don't need it necessarily for, you know, food or, I mean, sometimes body, but I don't need it for like the same reasons that I needed it a couple years ago. Nowadays, it's like, I mean, for what I was just talking about, like my job transition, that season of change, reminding myself like all discomfort is temporary. Like this change is really uncomfortable. I didn't ask for this change. It's just happening to me, and it's a significant change. Like that's my income and my job. Honestly, part of my identity. All of that is changing, and reminding myself that this is temporary. Like this season is not going to last forever. It's just one part of my life, and just like everything else does, it will pass. So I've kind of just held on to that one even after, you know, doing all that hard work in recovery and now being recovered. It applies to so many different things. So I love, love, love that mantra. How did you stop counting calories? I'm really struggling with that. That was so hard for me. I was like a MyFitnessPal ride or die. It's a really, really hard habit to break. It's more than just a habit too. It's like a crutch. Like I leaned so heavily on that because I put so much weight into those numbers. as I'm sure so many people can relate to. For me, I think the first step that I did to stop counting the calories was obviously delete my Fitness Pal, but I don't think I was ready at the time to fully delete it, because then I was just going into my notes app on my phone and writing down the numbers and the values there that I was just tracking before on the app. So it wasn't any different really, because when you're counting calories for so long, you know those numbers by heart. Like, you could just look at a food and know those numbers. So it didn't really help to just cold turkey delete the app. I wasn't ready for that. To get to a place where I fully now don't count calories, I don't think about that when I look at a food now. It took a long time. It took a lot of practice in other parts of my recovery to help build up my overall mindset and identity outside of food and body. It took time to get there where I no longer cared about the numbers, but I think a good first step to start challenging this habit of counting calories is to just add a little bit more or a little bit less of something. Because I feel like, for me at least, and I'm sure again so many people can relate, everything was so measured and precise on my plate. I knew the exact amount of everything because that's how I knew it was safe. But for example, if you're having oatmeal with peanut butter or something, adding just an extra random scoop of the peanut butter as a small way to challenge, now you don't know the exact number, even though, I mean, the numbers that we see on labels aren't even true to begin with. That's a whole other conversation. But in your mind, you don't know the exact number now with that added random amount, not another, measured amount. I feel that's a good way to start to challenge that, because again, if you just go cold turkey, you're setting yourself up to possibly fail and then feel like a failure and just be oh, I thought I'm gonna go back and it's not worth it anyway to try. I think it becomes a lot easier over time when your mindset is, shifting and changing, and your relationship with yourself is changing. You just start to put less and less value on those numbers. So today, I said, I don't look at food and immediately think of numbers, but those numbers are still in my brain. I can still remember these numbers that I lived my life by for so long. But now the difference is that I don't care about them. I don't put so much weight in them and value in them. So I feel you get to this point where you're just I value other things now. I view food differently, where it doesn't need to be a mathematical equation like that. And they just come to mean a lot less. So meet yourself where you're at and challenge it in little ways while you build yourself up in recovery, your strength and your resilience and all of that. It becomes easier over time. How do you deal with days when you eat more than normal, going out or something? So younger Isabel would have treated these days as cheat days or exception days. The next day, week, whatever, would be making up for that day where I went out or I had more food than usual or different foods than usual. Nowadays, first of all, I view food as so much more than just fuel and energy. So let's say I go out for a night out with friends and we go out to dinner and drinks after. Younger Isabel would have been oh my God, well, that was so many calories, or that was so much XYZ. I overdid it today. I need to do less tomorrow. Nowadays, it's oh, well, that was such a fun night. I had such a great time with my friends and enjoyed an awesome meal with them, enjoyed some really yummy drinks, and had a great time. And the emphasis is more on the situation and the experience that the food was involved in rather than the food itself. And same thing with the holidays too, food-centered holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving. It's so easy to be hyperfixated on just the food element of it and feel that guilt the next day or that shame. But focusing on everything else that the food is involved in, the situation, is huge. So switching it from I ate so much yesterday, what did I do? I need to go do X, Y, and Z now, to I'm so glad I got to spend that time with my family and enjoy a nice meal with them. That shift is really powerful and it helped me a lot. With those days, still does help me. I think another important piece to this is zooming out. If you go out one night and you have maybe a big dinner and drinks with your friends, zooming out and being okay, that's one night of my life that I did that. I don't do that every night. Thanksgiving, that's one meal out of the entire year. Just being able to zoom out like that, because for me at least, I was so hyper fixated on every single meal being perfect. This is one day of my life, or if I go on vacation or something, this is 1 week of my life. It doesn't have to mean so much, which is something that we say a lot in the practice that I work at. How did you try to challenge yourself when going through recovery? I think first and foremost, doing the exact opposite of what that voice was telling me to do. Maybe that's hard to do right off the bat. That was something I built up to, where like if I had a disordered thought, first of all, recognizing that it was a disordered thought and not me talking, and then doing the opposite of it. I think another good way to challenge yourself in recovery, just questioning some of these thoughts. If you have a thought of like, oh, well, I can't eat X, Y, and Z, asking yourself, why can't I eat that? Where did I like hear that I can't eat that? To identify where that thought is coming from. I think a really huge thing in recovery is distinguishing yourself from the ED voice, because that voice isn't you, it's separate from you. Being aware of that first and foremost is huge, and then calling it out is also huge. When that thought comes up, you can challenge it by being like, well, who's talking right now? Like, am I talking, or is that, diet culture, or that Instagram post that I saw, or that TikTok that told me that carbs are bad, whatever. And identifying that is a really helpful way to challenge it, on top of then acting and doing the opposite. Okay, I got a couple questions about my clothes and my jewelry. So, and just like style in general, which I'm so flattered because I love putting outfits together. I just love that others notice that. So thank you. I'm really flattered by these questions. I'll start with jewelry Rex. I actually posted on TikTok where all of my current favorite jewelry is from. That one, like, I don't change my jewelry, the stuff that I wear every single day. Most of it's from TJ Maxx. If I have to give one recommendation of where to go buy affordable jewelry that doesn't tarnish, TJ Maxx for sure. Oh, some favorite stores, definitely Zara, Abercrombie, Aritzia, Free People Movement. I also love being comfortable, so I'm really, especially recently, I've been trying to expand my closet outside of what I usually buy, like high-waisted, baggy jeans. I love those, but they don't always make me feel my best, so I'm trying to expand my wardrobe to include like comfortable dresses, skirts, and stuff like that, so that I'm comfortable. A couple years ago, if you asked me that question, it would have been like, well, whatever makes me look the smallest. Like, let's be real, that's what I was thinking. And nowadays it's like, well, how do I feel? Like, I don't want to feel constricted or uncomfortable for an entire day or night. No one asked that, but that's been a shift in my shopping habits and just where my head's at when I shop. Something you wish someone told you before starting recovery? Ooh, that's really, really hard. The things that come to mind are kind of cheesy things like, it's worth it, you can do it, like it's possible, because that was something I struggled with for a long time. In my mind, I was like, I'm hopeless, I'm a lost cause, like it's not even worth trying. But I don't know if that's what I would go back and say. I guess I'll just go with those because nothing else is really coming to mind, but just like the confirmation that there is hope, that you can do it. People have done it before. You're not the only one that's going through this, and that there is a light on the other side. Is there anything you would do different in recovery if you knew what you know now? That's a good question. Yes, I would definitely pause exercise. I did not take a break from exercise even in my recovery. I can make a whole separate video on my story. I didn't work with a team or professionals. I tried ED therapy twice and I dropped out twice. And then I did the majority of the work on my own using online resources. Yeah, just doing it on my own really with my support system, but no professional team, which I feel would have told me you need to take a break from exercise, because I never did that. I just continued what I was doing in terms of movement while I was working on the food and the self-worth stuff. And then later on, I started to work on the movement, which is fine. I feel that probably would have happened if I worked with a team anyway. It would have been maybe done in parts. I don't know, I'm just assuming. I would have taken a break at some point, a couple months at least with no movement, which would have terrified me. And I don't think I probably would have done it on my own. I know I wouldn't. I mean, I didn't do it on my own actually. Just looking back, I feel I could have saved myself a lot of time if I had done that in terms of my relationship with movement. What did you study in college? I was a psych major and I was planning on working with kids. I didn't want to be a teacher, but I wanted to be some sort of, I actually don't know, but I wanted to do psychology with children. And I worked at a psych lab on campus at Boston College that specifically worked with children participants. So like I helped run some studies with kids and it was really fun. That was my major and it ended up being helpful. Obviously, like that ties together with working at a therapy practice, but that was totally unplanned. I have a lot of questions about how to start recovery and how to start intuitive eating. I feel like a good place to start if you're looking to heal your relationship with food is surround yourself with resources that are in that space already. Unfollow all these diet culture accounts or like even ones that kind of walk that line between could be toxic, could not be toxic. I feel like just you unfollow those accounts, get them off your feed when you're scrolling, and replace them with accounts that are already in the food freedom, anti-diet, intuitive eating space. So at least when you're on your phone, you're not getting blasted with things that are against healing and against, recovery. And you're seeing things instead that are people that are in the same position as you or were in the same position and now are, living a different lifestyle, promoting maybe what you're working towards. I feel like that's a really good place to start. And I can list a couple of accounts, actually. I'll list accounts in the description below that I really like, that I follow, and other ones that I just, know about that I feel like would fit really well into that space. So reading, finding other resources that can teach you about intuitive eating and healing. Let me grab some of my favorite books. Hold on. So first and foremost, I think Intuitive Eating by Evelyn, Tribole, and Elyse Resch. I think that's how you say her last name. That book is, the Basics 101 of intuitive eating. I definitely recommend reading that. I also loved Health at Every Size. That one's really good. Body of Truth. And Life Without Ed. These were probably my top 3 favorite reads in terms of this, space. But I definitely recommend reading books like that, listening to podcasts in that space as well, just to educate yourself more on like what intuitive eating is and some steps to do it. There are a lot of helpful resources out there that are totally free, because getting professional help isn't an option for everyone because it can be expensive and there's just a million reasons. But I think there are a lot of free resources like changing your feed, who you follow, and getting some free / affordable resources like podcasts and books. What countries have you been to and which ones would you love to visit? Well, my mom is Honduran and she has family there, so we have traveled there. Like my family has traveled there a bunch of times when I was younger. So I've been to Honduras, been to Jamaica, been to Mexico. Everywhere I've been has been on the Western Hemisphere. I would love to go to Europe. To answer the second question, I would love to go. I feel like the basics: Italy, France, UK. I think those are the main ones, right? Oh, Greece. Just anywhere across the Atlantic Ocean. I feel like I would love to go there because I'd never flown across the ocean. That segues into this question. Do you speak any other languages besides English? Unfortunately not, which is, honestly, I'm really embarrassed by that, considering my mom was born and raised in Honduras and moved here when she was in her 20s. I spoke Spanish, fluent Spanish, but my mom spoke to me in Spanish when I was a baby. There are videos of me talking or speaking in Spanish as a toddler. By the time I got to school age, English took over and I didn't really continue learning Spanish. I was in some Spanish classes at the Hispanic Center near us. It wasn't a consistent practice for us anymore. And now that I'm almost 25, I'm I wish that I was bilingual. I should be bilingual. And I think about going back to Duolingo probably twice a week, multiple times a week. I think about that. So I'll probably do that. This was a good motivator because I wanted my answer to be yes. Do you find yourself remembering eating behaviors in your day-to-day life now? Yes, but let me expand. So I definitely am aware of behaviors that have changed for me. So if I'm doing something today that's so mundane, like rolling out of bed and eating breakfast, nowadays I don't think about that, or I don't have to make myself do that necessarily. Not necessarily, I don't have to make myself do that. But I will do that and then remember 3 years ago, I couldn't do that. I was here in my journey and now I'm here. Or if I go out for spontaneous ice cream or something, thinking, oh wow, I would have been freaking out right now a couple years ago. I probably would have gone but not gotten anything a couple years ago. Just appreciating the difference between then and now, kind of. I think about that pretty frequently and it's a really good feeling. What would you say to someone who wants to recover but is scared of body change? That was me 100%. Like, I knew I had an issue that needed addressing for a couple months before I actually said anything because I was scared of the body change. I mean, as cliche as it sounds, like, you are so much more than your body, and that people don't love you for your body. They will love you regardless of whether or not your body changes or when it does eventually change, whether it's in recovery or just like later in life. Our bodies are bound to change. They're meant to change. I would definitely say that to my younger self too. If I had heard that when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have believed it, honestly, because that belief was so ingrained in my mind that I was like, I cannot change because people won't like me if my body changes, or I'm known as like the fit friend and I can't change that because that's why people like me, or that's what I thought. But that's definitely what I would say, that like you are so much more than your body, and like people love you for you, and if they do love you for your body, then maybe it's worth reevaluating that relationship. Or if they love you just because of the way you look, like that's not someone maybe that you want to have in your life. Favorite current snack? I've been loving Bobos recently. I got sent a bunch of their boxes of like different flavors. My favorite one is the peanut butter chocolate chip Bobos, and then I just started having the peanut butter jelly. Those are fire, really good. First thing you do when you wake up, sadly, it's check my phone. I'm being so real. I'm trying to change that, but that's where we're at right now. I got a couple questions about how long I have been in recovery / when I started recovery. So my eating disorder started when I was 18, when I was a freshman in college, and then really picked up my sophomore year, and I started recovery senior year of college, and COVID was going on during all of this. So like I was a senior I was a junior when we got sent home for COVID, and I was in my off-campus apartment when I decided that I needed to call my mom and tell her like I had a problem. So that's when I technically started. But then, like I said, I tried ED therapy twice. I wasn't actually ready to do the changes. So I kind of just maintained what I was doing, knowing that I had a problem, but at the same time feeling hopeless, so not wanting to change anything. And then I think I actually started making progress in recovery after graduation when I moved back home. And so that was like the summer of 2021. So since then, what's the rest part of that question? Oh, how long have I felt recovered? Like I mentioned, or maybe I didn't mention this, I forget, but I worked on food first and then I worked on movement. So I feel like it was prolonged. Not that there's like a timeline that there should be for recovery because everyone's different. So there's not a timeline, but I feel like for me specifically, it was prolonged by the movement piece. Like I said, I didn't rest. I didn't really do anything to challenge that for a long time. I've felt recovered for a while now. I don't think I can put a number on it, like number of months or years or anything like that. I don't feel like there's anything right now that I need to like actively work on. I feel really stable in my recovery, and I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. I think a major turning point for me, oh my God, this isn't part of the question, but it just came to my mind if you were curious. But a major part for me, a turning point for me was the fitness tracker coming off. I have this watch now that John actually gave me as like a replacement for the fitness tracker, which I wear this every single day. And since I got this is what I've been wearing instead of the Apple Watch. And that was really big for me too. I feel like that was the last kind of crutch that I had, an active crutch that I had. But like I said, now I don't feel like I'm actively working on anything or need to work on anything. So I feel very settled and like stable in my recovery. Sure, those thoughts pop up sometimes if they're triggered by something, but I don't act on them. I can like acknowledge them, recognize it for what it is, and then pack it away and like, dismiss it. What does a typical day look like for you? I'm actually gonna film something like this because I feel like that'd be a fun vlog to do, but it's definitely changed since my job situation has changed. And I'm really glad that I'm in the city during that change because it already had opened doors for me by moving, and I feel like I was really able to like lean into those doors once my job situation changed. So I'll make a video on that, like, come with me, day in the city life vlog, whatever. I got a bunch of questions too about compulsive and overexercise, which is something I definitely struggled with. So I'll touch on a couple of these questions just by talking about my experience and how I worked on that. I definitely over exercised compulsively, like obsessively, needed to, even it was like shaking my leg kind of thing. Just always needed to be up and moving because I needed to burn everything I ate and more in my mind. And again, the fitness tracker was huge in my ED. So similar when it came to stopping, or the calorie counting question is just meeting yourself where you're at and not feeling the need to go from 100 to 0, because I feel like that just sets you up to fail and then fall back on that behavior. Like if you're like, I'm gonna stop completely, like I'm gonna just, like I said, never calorie count again, or just like stop working out or stop everything I was doing. It's a willpower thing then, and that's bound to break. Similar to like when you start a diet, your willpower has an end point. So meeting yourself where you're at when it comes to that workout. So if you have a very strict, rigid routine when it comes to movement, maybe just tweaking it a little bit, starting small. And like if you have a certain regimen, maybe one day you do it for 20 minutes less, and then, you know, cut your workout off at a certain time that you wouldn't cut it out or cut it off usually. And then doing that repeatedly until you build up strength to then change something else. It's easier said than done, but I feel like taking the baby steps really add up and take you farther than just stopping cold turkey. And it's much more realistic to tell yourself, I'm just gonna cut my workout down by like 10 minutes today, than it is to say like, I'm not gonna work out this week, when you were working out 7 days a week, no rest, kind of stuff like that. And as you like progress in recovery in general, I feel like you start to realize that these beliefs that you've held on to so tightly of like why you need to compulsively work out, like the reason behind it, whatever your brain is telling you, you start to realize that these beliefs aren't true. Like I was just talking to my friend Jenni about this on her podcast. Actually, you can check it out. I'll link it. We were talking about these beliefs that we held on to so tightly as being true, like in terms of body and food. And as you challenge them, you realize like, oh, that was a lie. For example, for me, I was like, if my body changes, I'm not going to be liked. I'm not going to be loved. And then my body did change in recovery, and I still had my family. I still had my friends. People still loved me. And I realized like, okay, that was a lie. What else is maybe a lie that I, held so tightly and really believed? I didn't necessarily think like that at the time, but looking back, I feel like that's what I would say. Like, as your mindset changes and you challenge yourself to take more rest or just cut back your movement, you can realize like, oh, well, I, didn't do that rigid routine that I feel the need to do every single day. I cut it by like 30 minutes this time, and I'm okay. Nothing bad happened. Whatever my brain thought was going to happen didn't. I'm okay. And it kind of gives you the strength to do it again or change it in a different way, and maybe take a full rest day, and then seeing like, okay, I took a full rest day and I'm okay. Nothing happened to me. Nothing bad happened. So it just gives you the strength to keep going forward, is what I'm trying to say, like disproving those thoughts. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up there because my battery is about to die again. But thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful and like informative, a little bit about me. If you enjoyed, please subscribe and check out the other videos I have on my channel. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you next week with another video. Bye.